Good morning. We are back from Abundant Life Live today, and we're just going to really just talk about ministry, the transparency of ministry, these 23 years as a full time pastor of Abundant Life Full Gospel Outreach Church. Before we start, I just want to say thank you to the members of Abundant Life as I was preparing to come on live today. I thought about the years that we've gone through. I thought about the people that has come and been a part of our ministry. I thought about the people that are still in ministry at Abundant Life. And I personally want to say thank you this morning. And those that's on the way, I just want to say thank you. These 23 years has been a blessing. These 23 years have taught me a lot of things about life, about being a pastor and servicing people. So I just want to say congratulations to Abundant Life Full Gospel Outreach Church at the campus, 6001 Buena Vista Road. But we are excited this morning that Prathan Power, Prophet Prathan Power will be our special guest this morning. And he'll be talking about transparency of ministry. We'll just be talking and sharing about ministry and about the ups and downs and some of the things that we go through as pastors. And so today, I want to bring forth my friend, the pastor of World Changes Tabernacle, Pastor Prathan L. Powell, Sr. Of World Changes Tabernacle. Good morning. Thank you for joining me, my friend, Pastor Powell. So we're just excited that he'll be coming on. He'll be a part of what we're doing this morning. On Thursday night, Apostle Lamaris Richardson. Oh my God, what a profound word on Thursday. We had a little technical difficult, but once we got started, it was awesome. Go back to our Facebook page and like it, and you'll get a word from the Lord. Then on Friday night, as I talked to Apostle Willie Hicks from Chosen Generation right there in the Fed out of Alabama, I said to her, I said, you came out like a raging bull. You came out ready with a profound word from the book of Nehemiah. So it has been a awesome, blessed 2 nights of celebrating our 23rd church anniversary. And I want to do something different this morning. Just talk about ministry, talk about the transparency of ministry, and to talk about the things that go on behind the scenes and the challenges, but in the end, we see great results. So it's been a blessing. It is a blessing, and I'm glad to be a servant leader at Abundant Life. So with my friend coming on, Prophet Prathan Lamar Power Sr. from World Changes Tabernacle, we're just going to talk a little bit about
Hey,
ministry this morning. Good morning.
God bless you, darling. Good to see you this morning on a Sunday morning in the midst of a pandemic. Yet we able to come and talk about a way of live stream. To God be the glory.
Yes, sir. Just want to talk about some transparency of ministry and some things that I've gone through, you've gone through. Just pastors go through different challenges, but the blessing is that 23 years later, who would have ever thought that I am still pastoring Abundant Life Full Gospel Outreach Church after these 23 years in ministry?
When you think about 23 years of ministry, it's very significant because you gone 2 decades, you know, of ministry, and not only that time frame related to being called into ministry, but actually pastoring those amounts of years. And no doubt, in that amount of time, you had some transition issues. I've been in ministry. Next year, be 30 years. I've been pastoring World Changes. Uh,
Wow.
so I thank God for that. But I promise you, the story comes with stories.
Yes. It's been a road. It's been some things that I really didn't understand about ministry when I first got started. Uh, just want to be obedient to God. And during this time, God has blessed us. He's caused us to see some things in ministry that I never thought that we would see miracles.
Yeah.
We have seen children grow up that's now adult and have their own children, families
Hmm.
come through ministry. We've seen funerals, we've seen weddings, we've seen birth of babies. There's a lot of dynamics of ministry that we get to see. Of course, counseling is one of them. We also get to see in 23 years.
But in that time frame, you and I have talked. In fact, you and I, we're gonna be transparent. Let's be transparent. We talk every single day. Uh,
Yes.
we go way back from junior high school, which they call middle school now, Richard Junior High, to high school when you was playing basketball. Every now and then you dump that goal. So, but
Stop. Okay.
you've always been a go getter, unbeknown to yourself. As we discovered that ministry comes with a price. We're in a pandemic, and I find myself always asking the Father, for direction and guidance because people need experienced leadership. And when you've been in this thing 23 years, that is experienced leadership. That is the type of leadership that people just don't come up upon, especially with the same ministry. Now, I've had opportunities to go and set up new churches in other places like Atlanta, Sons in New York, even to the point where I could have just broadened my horizon with ministry. But I always found it best to be the local pastor, and being a local pastor has really been mind-boggling because everybody get weary at some point in life. I don't care how good, how professional you are. I've always been a pastor that believed in doing it right and doing it right the first time. Have I erred? Have I made mistakes? Have I come short? Oh God, I can't begin to count. If I count it'll make you rich. But the truth of the matter is when you can have an intimate relationship with the Father and have intimate relationship with other pastors that are doing what we're doing. It's hard to tell someone to do something that you never experienced yourself. But once you come up into the experience of it, now you can be that safeguard to other pastors, other ministry, other leaders. And for you and I, we both come from a position of life where I didn't know God had wanted me to be a pastor. And then that day came, now I became this pastor. And now I'm too far into it to go back. Even though we hear statistics saying that many are walking away from the pulpit every day. Well, then I kind of question the legitimacy of that because when God calls you to do something, you just can't walk away. You may feel like Jeremiah. You may feel like Elijah. Elijah the prophet said, "I'm the only one left," and God said, "No, you're not. I got 5,000 not bowed down the bell." I believe in what we're doing, and the time we serve has proven that we outlive any lie, we outlive any persecution, because in this you're going to suffer persecution when you're doing God's work.
Yes. Yes.
So what you have to do is look at it like this. The word of God says, many are called, but few are chosen. Now, the question is, who's called, who's chosen? Longevity tells you who's been chosen.
Correct.
Many are called to do ministry, meaning from evangelism to sharing your faith, but only a few are selected, chosen to do what we're doing. And you have to be very appreciative, very thankful of all the people God could have chose to do this. He chose you and I. He chose, he didn't choose Dr. Outley, he chose Delta. He
Correct.
didn't choose Prophet Powell, he chose Prathan. So he know me by my name. That's a new song, he know my name. Well, I think at some point as leaders, we gotta remember we got a name first before the title.
Yes. I agree. There's been some challenging times. There's been some up times, some down times, but the experience of 23 years, it kind of really touch you in a place to challenge what God really called you to do. There's days when you can be on the top of the mountain, and then by evening you can be in the valley having the experience of somebody disgruntled or somebody's not pleased with what's going on. And so then ministry brings many, many dynamics, not to, as you said, Dr. Outlet, Prophet Power, and others, but challenging your very core at times. But the blessing is that we always see the grace of God coming through. We always see the hand of God. We always see the miracles of God coming through. So it's been a great ride. It's been some roller coasters. It's been, as you say all the time, we have to just ride the wave. We have to just ride the storm and see the things that God's got for us in the end. So it's greater days to come for the church, the body of Christ, but it's not going to be an overnight success. Ministry is never an overnight success. It's always a challenge as to what we have to do. So I thank you for sharing that about, longevity, those that are called, those that's been chosen of the Lord. So I appreciate making that statement as we talk this morning.
Well, I like to say this. Ministry is kind of like this cup here. You see the outside exterior, but you don't know what's inside. It's what's on the inside that determines can the cup outside contain what's on the inside. It's like the Bible says, you don't put new wine in old wineskin.
Correct.
So what we have done over the history, obviously, of the church is that we looked at the exterior of it, but we didn't know what the interior looked like.
Right.
And people judge us what we look at on the outside, but they don't know the pain. They don't know the suffering. They don't know are you gonna be able to pay this bill? Are you gonna be able to overcome this? They went there when you had a high score credit score, and also your credit went down because you have to do most of the funding with the ministry. And then when God brings you out, you start recovering. Your latter days are better than your former days.
Yes, yes.
God does this when He calls you to ministry. He shows you the outcome, but He never shows you the process. If you saw the process, you never get to the outcome. Because the outcome always look better than the process. And for me, in these years of ministry, I've always been part of that process. And I've been through challenges from divorce, challenge of financial almost run, challenge of having the abundance, challenge of trying to make it to the end. And through it all, because God chose me, I stayed the course. Now, that was the time, and a lot of people don't know this. All the books I've written, my books are not ghostwriting. I've written my books. These are my stories. These are my experiences in ministry. My first book was The Good, the Bad, the Ugly of ministry from a pioneer perspective. And that book was dealing with what I had already experienced in ministry thus far, not including what was down the road. I was just on the beginning of the journey, of the pathway of this journey of my assignment. And then through all of that, I began to experience more things. But it did not change my heart for God, but it gave me a different perspective about people in the inner part of the church. Because when you need people the most as a pastor or as a leader, is when you're going through. It's not when I come out, I need you to celebrate me in the victory. I need you to be with me in the midst of the storm.
Yes, yes, yes.
So,
Well, yes, and what I want to speak to the fact that there's seasons in all ministries. Abundant Life have gone through transition, and there were days that I thought that it was just abundant life, but it was across the board. People was going through things, and ministry go through transition periods, and people don't see the real of ministry. They don't see the transparency. They don't see the behind the scene things. They don't see the lonely nights. They don't see the early mornings, and that we work 80, 90 hours a week at times, and sometimes there is no breaks. There's no vacation, or the budget has not been met. There's always challenges that people don't see. But I would like to say it's the anointing that brings us out. It's the grace of God, the, the the oversight of God really having His hands on us to a point that it doesn't look like we're going through anything, but behind the scenes, it looked like we're about to shipwreck. And God always not find because He doesn't have to find a way. God always make a way out of no way. I think the most trying time for me, for those that's listening, is when Mother Outley passed away, the transition of ministry. And I knew then that the ministry would go through a transitional period. That's been 10, 11 years ago. And by the grace of God, He is rebuilding and reposturing the ministry to do even greater work. But there's some things that people never see. They never know about. People thinking about committing suicide, and you have to be the voice to talk with them and get them the right help, or people having marital problems, and you have to be the voice to say, hey guys, let's just see, can you all work this out, or whatever our role is. A lot of people just don't see some of the behind the scene things. That's what I would like to speak about.
For me, during this part of this journey, as a pioneer,
Mm-hmm.
when I first started ministry, status in the church, I started off in my apartment, and from there I went to the first storefront, from the storefront to another storefront. And then from there, we built the church of World Changes with 15 members, which was unheard of in that time. That type of progression was taking place, but no one knew behind the scenes how much pain I was going through. I was in a very dysfunctional marriage at the time. I was trying to balance that and keep that in order from a scene outward look. But even when I was being tormented, I was having major issues. And the problem that I faced at that time was the pastors in the area who I thought had been like rail around me saying, man, we'll encourage you. Yeah, they stopped speaking.
Mm-hmm.
I had one pastor, he was coming to the mall. I tell this all the time, it's amazing. I went to speak to him, I spoke to him, he looked at me and walked away, turned away and wouldn't speak to me. At that time, if you was had something on your name as far as something went wrong, people turn it back on you. And it's crazy that when we leave people the most is when they find themselves escaping. But when you come out of it, and when the truth comes, now everybody will come back and say, they sorry. But then, your sorry doesn't make up what you could have done. If the Bible is true, which it is, it says, if a brother be overtaken a fault, ye that are spiritual, restore such a one.
Mm-hmm.
Consider thyself. And what we have found out, a lot of times we can be so self-absorbed with ourselves that we don't be a brother's keeper. A brother's keeper is that if you're going through, I'm going through. If you're hurting, I'm hurting. If your budget's not being met, and then you're not careful, people look at me, look at you, and say, well, they're doing good because they got nice buildings, they got nice vehicles, that they praise the power, carry himself in a business perspective. He always on point. But what's behind being on point? What has it taken to get me to that?
Yes.
How many times did I wake up after that divorce and my heart was broken? I was broken, but yet I kept functioning. I would cry from my apartment at the time all the way to my church, and then when I got on the street of Alta Vista that led to World Changer, I had to wipe with my tears. I would put red the stuff in my eyes, keep my eyes from being red, get in the pulpit, perform again, do what God chose me to do, get out of the pulpit, lay hands on folks before I leave the church, get back in my car, and I'm crying back home. Why?
Yes.
Not because of the divorce, but because of the what I call the rejection. They're not encouraging me. So I had to pull myself by my own bootstrap and say, Lord, for you I live and for you I die. I didn't ask for this, but God, whatever you're going to do, because that was my season. That was my season to know who could support me, who could love me, who cannot be a part of the demise of me, because I've learned that I never had problem with the world. My problem was with church people.
Mm-hmm.
It was with other leaders. Because when I was in the world ran its own course. But when you transition to the church, that's supposed to be the hospitalization. That's supposed to be the cure. But because a lot of us don't understand what pain is, we don't realize people in ministry go through a lot. But God is faithful.
Yes.
And I did not abort the mission. I remember when I started the church in Atlanta, it was an open door for me. The business owner that had a building in Atlanta called me, he had been watching me. He said, I got a building here, and I'd love for you to utilize it. No cost to you, just come and establish. Atlanta is a fertile ground for churches, especially become mega churches, at the level that I was ministering at. And I went there. I was trying to leave the city. I was trying to do a fresh start. And I wrote a book called Fresh Start. But I was trying to lead the sick. I was experiencing the good, the bad, the ugly of ministry. Right. So my only way out was, well, maybe God's opened another door. If I go to Atlanta, establish this work, it grows, and I can set a church, leave a pastor, this founding church. They had several sons in my ministry could have did it. In fact, it was going to be Property Standard, because she had the heart for the ministry as well as a man of God. And I was going to go to Atlanta. I was running, but God wouldn't let me do a Jonah run. I did it for almost a year. My back went out. I had to have surgery, and we were convoying up there every Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
I would have at least 40, 30 some members would follow me, and that's not including the folks in Atlanta. So we started building, it started growing, but then it wasn't God's will for me.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to self-preservation by going to somewhere else, so no one didn't know me. Not that I didn't do that wrong, but I was trying to get people in my own area to accept me and love me. And I
Mm-hmm.
went, well, I got to know, you go back to Libya and do the work.
Mm-hmm.
And God, I did what God said and not did what I wanted to do. If I had the resources, I would not came back to Columbus. But it was God's will. So that's the pain of ministry. That's
Yes.
that evidence. That's that spirit. I can tell another pastor, listen, hey, you're gonna have a transition in your ministry. You gonna have problems in your home. You gonna have
Yes.
problems with your children, but still don't give up because God has something greater for you.
Awesome. Listen, when I think about when we first got started, 1997, and this
Wow.
speaking to the pain of ministry, 1997, uh, really looking to do just a Bible study, and it went from a Bible study to a church, and from a church, we got a building, and I was so fearful that I would not do Bible study. I would just do church on Sundays and do Bible study from a recreation center at that time, walking in fear. And then from there, we went to a warehouse we went to a warehouse, and after going to the warehouse, God began to really pour out. We was right there at the project area, and God
Yeah.
used us to plant seeds over in the project area. And from
On
the
Casino Road.
project, yeah,
Yeah, I
from Casita
remember.
Road, that's
Yeah.
it, Casita Road. And from Casita Road, we just saw growth. And my mind said we need to get our own building, because now this is a 2-year-old ministry, and after
Okay.
2 years, we landed up on Buena Vista Road, and started off just because of the zillness and
Yeah.
the challenges, and me wanting to be just in a place of God. Started 2 services, an 8 o'clock service and 11 o'clock service, and began to just see growth that I could never take credit for. And we
Yeah.
just had a lot of people in the building. Now, if I could go back and to go hindsight, I should have built leaders and training, and doing more training with leadership,
Mm-hmm.
and to build a foundation. And once the transition occurred, we went from a packed parking lot to not so packed parking lot to very few in the parking lot. And here now we got a big building, and couldn't fill the big building. So that was challenging to me as Delta, a person that loves to compete, and a person that liked to be on the top of the list, the top, is to say, top of my game, and
Mm-hmm.
to see the numbers decrease, not knowing that they were decreasing around the country. So it's some inner turmoil that you go through. I've gone through as a pastor, looking at big numbers,
Yeah.
and lots of people, and lots of children and families, and being able to travel the United States and preach, and going to Africa to preach, and just being really busy. And
Yeah.
that's a key word in ministry, and not really building that foundation. If I could go back 23 years later, I would build a stronger leadership foundation and build the people as we go. So that was an inner turmoil, because we went from seeing great numbers to seeing
Mm-hmm.
small numbers to seeing almost few numbers, and God has been faithful. God has been faithful.
You see, and that's the amazing part about ministry. Everybody has their own story, and everyone has their journey in this arena. We did the opposite. We built the foundation. We was built on the foundation. We
Mm-hmm.
haven't been the order of the church, the training. I've always been a person that trained my leadership, but at that time I wouldn't have the abundance of members, but
Mm-hmm.
we had support financially. So for 20 years, it took almost 20 years for me to get a real musician. The
That's
reason,
right.
because the Holy Spirit had already told me that I could not compromise in the musical department, meaning couldn't have a person, a male factor or female, on the organ who's supposed to bring them to worship and they wasn't living a righteous lifestyle. Whether it
Right.
was heterosexual or homosexuality. It wasn't going to be permitted. They need to be people who represent God.
Right.
Satan did his own musical thing, and he was cast out of heaven. So the last thing we need on earth is that type of behavior in that department. Because over the years, I had a young musician come to me years ago, and he said he was new to church, but he said if you bring me on and let me pay me, I become a member of your church. I be a musician. And I told that young man back then, I said, before I pay you a dime, I'll play track music. And I do that. I play track music. And I remember when the praise team would go up, that was the church. So they would singing to me. I was but soon they came out of the church pulpit, we had a church again. And it took years for it to grow. But God was sustaining me. But I believe also he was testing my faith. God, I remember you in them. I remember saying I would pass by your church on some Sunday heading to my ministry, and your parking lot would be full at 8 o'clock. And I'm thinking, and the words he's doing over there. And I was happy for you. But it took God showing me about me. See, ministry will do two things. If you really been chosen this, it'll make you and it'll make you. That was it. It makes you and it'll make you. Because we're all on that potter's wheel being developed for the work of God. And as a pastor, as a senior pastor, you and I now, we are the new generals of the city. We're the new generals of the church, but the Rudolph Allen and the Hill, these guys, the Bishop L.D. Skinner, these guys have served in their time of ministry. And here we are now. We are in that place. The Bishop Allen, the James Allen, others that are doing this work now. We are now, we are the gatekeepers. We need to get on board being gatekeepers because of the call of God in our lives.
Awesome. Gatekeepers gonna cost us something. And it's just not something that we or I grew up or said I want to do it. It's because of the time, the longevity, the experience, the stick to itness, to not giving up, not quitting. And being a single woman, it's been a challenge because there's most people that's doing ministry as couples. And I thought that things were going great. And I used the word thought that things are going great because they're couples, and come to find out there's sometimes competition even with the couples as co-pastors and pastors and defining their roles. So as a single woman in Columbus, to start a ministry, 1997, it has had its challenges as well. And you and I talk about it a lot of times. Even though you're married, there are days that you can still be lonely in a marriage. You can still feel isolated as a pastor in marriage. So I began to just settle in that God knew exactly. He knows exactly what he's doing in my life as a pastor, as a single pastor, as a woman pastor, which Columbus really is not embracing that totality. That's another dynamic. So I know without a shadow of doubt that God has called me. He's has anointed me for such a time as this to do the things that he's allowing me to do. And a lot of times we work jobs, we outside of ministry. That has to be the grace of God. Yeah.
It is definitely because I look at you I'm just a chart guy. I look at the charts, I look at statistics, and I look at the stats of how things are being done, how they come together. And you and the late Ann Hartman, and the late Bell, the late Rafi, these are female pastors who are in the trenches. Ann Hartman, the late Ann Hartman, took it by storm. She took the female pastor position and just ran. It just took to, and then you was that baton holder. I mean, you guys was running great numbers. Let's not talk about so much the numbers, just saying against all the odds of being a woman in ministry, you had the male factors who probably more like one they didn't call themselves, but they resented you all for what God had put on you all. Listen, if God created man in his image, and God never said that a woman can be a pastor, never said that. Paul only addressed the women in the ministry based on in the Corinthian church being out of order. It wasn't that they couldn't preach. It's just they were out of order when it came under the Holy Spirit. So you yourself now, 23 years later, still carrying the torch. You're still doing the work that been. You still got challenges. You still got folks got their idea, their ideology views. It's still there, but it hasn't stopped you from running the course. You can't stop. If you could have stopped, you stopped when Mother Outlet died. You would have stopped then. But because you stood the test and you stand the course, it's a celebration to you. It is a celebration to you because you could have easily walked away, but you can't walk away when you've been chosen. And you are
Amen.
chosen. You are chosen. I know your story. I've been a part of your story. I'll fight a lion bear over you because I
Yes.
believe God's called you to do it. And when others don't celebrate you, you know I'm about the word celebration. I esteem you because I know God is with Delta George Outley. I know God's with you. Keep moving the course. Keep pushing that ministry to the next destination because your successor one day, whoever that he or she may be, have to be able to fill those shoes because you've already established shoes print that only a person that's called with that type of caliber can do it. And again, I esteem you about that.
Thank you so much. I mean, I'm just sitting here full thinking about uh, the late A and L Hartman and the late Dr. J.H. Carter. Those people put a footprint, they put a seal, they put a wisdom, they put experience in me. And those people I can never, ever forget along the journey. And as we conclude this talk with you today, it's just good to be in company with folk that know the ministry, know the pain, know the ups and the great days and the celebration and the excellence of ministry. It's good to be able to just to talk and let Facebook know some of the transparency of ministry. And I'm not sitting here, you're not sitting there trying to make it glamorous. We don't need titles, and that's a whole nother story. We just need to be able to do the work of God and to please God. That one day when it's over, He'll say, "Well done, thy good and faithful servant." So I'm grateful that you took time this morning. You got 11 o'clock service that you have to get into, but just to sit and talk with you a few minutes on our 23rd church anniversary about the transparency of ministry. And guess what? I'm going to do this again because some young pastor that's in the trenches now, they need to hear this. That is real. Thank you so much.
Can I say this? This
Please.
is part of the new norm. Well, the anniversary where the person will come in place and build it.
Right.
Will be, but things will get better at some point. But let me say this. This is why, as pastors that are experienced like you and I, understand that titles are less of importance. We're in the middle of a pandemic. It's about the people's souls, it's about encouraging people. And I want to again thank you for even being willing to open the door for me to come and share some of my experience and hear most of your experience. And I wish you and the Abundant Life family a happy 23rd anniversary. You guys keep pushing. You stay with your woman of God. She's anointed, she's appointed, and she's assigned for such a time like this. If you don't do it, I'll come get you myself.
Thank you so much. Listen, y'all have a blessed day. We'll be back on next Sunday. God bless you. Enjoy the rest of your day as we go forward in the things of God. Have a blessed morning.
Love you, darling. Bye bye.
Love you. Thank you.